Three men block grandma at ATM. Find out they messed with the wrong granny. Some people really do have low morals. All too often we hear about people preying on the weak or the elderly. But you should never judge a book by its cover. Winifred was about to do her shopping one day when she felt three figures shadowing her from behind. Little did these three hooligans know, but they were messing with the wrong woman. Before we begin, make sure you smash the like button, subscribe to our channel, and click the notification bell for daily amazing videos. British grandmother Winifred Peel looks like any older lady. At 77 years old, she lives a tranquil life near Liverpool. Happily retired and never in a hurry, that was how she liked to look at life. She was an active woman, but still her age came with limitations. But one day these limitations didn't hold her back. Winnie left the house one day. She had grown up in the neighborhood, so she knew everything exceptionally well. The weather was cold, like typical England weather. She bundled up and started walking through the town. On days like these, cold and rainy, she would usually love to walk up to her favorite cafe and enjoy a hot tea and something sweet too. As she kept to herself and walked through her local shops, something caught her eye. Right in front of the local bank, three men seemed to be arguing. She didn't give it much thought and continued her day. Winnie had always been an active person. She knew her way around handiwork, as she would still help her father around the house, building, repairing anything. As she grew older, she enjoyed such an active pace. If the three men had known a little bit about Winnie, they would have thought twice about their actions. As she walked around town minding her own business, she remembered she had to buy a gift for one of her friend's daughters. It was her birthday soon, and she thought of her as a daughter herself. She wanted to get something special. As she browsed the store, she found a couple of items that would look great on her. Happy with the items, she went up to the register so they could ring her up. But as soon as they told her the amount, she gasped. She didn't have enough cash on her. She hurried to the nearest ATM. Little did she know, three men were waiting for her. The town she lived in was pretty small. There was a couple of banks, but still she'd have to walk a long time to get to the closest one. Spry for her age, she walked briskly and even enjoyed the active pace. But then, as she kept on moving, she noticed how she was beginning to be out of breath. She stopped to get some air and pushed the thought aside. With age came limitations. But this was no excuse for Winnie. She could see the bank getting closer. As she reached into her handbag and got her purse ready, once she got to the ATM, she was breathless and needed to collect herself. A woman queued behind her and Winnie noticed. "You go ahead, dear," Winnie said. "I'll be a minute." Thanking her, the woman went ahead. Winnie was too busy collecting her credit cards to notice the deep, hushed voices that seemed to be creeping up. With age, you get to learn a lot about life. Winnie always had a motto she lived by: give kindness, receive kindness back. This kind of thinking is how she spent her days, with a loving heart and a warm smile. She never mistrusted people, as she never really knew them enough to do so. There she was in front of the ATM, putting her card in. She noticed a dark figure reflected on the machine's dark screen. Still, she wasn't alarmed. She entered her PIN and hit continue. But then, out of the blue, her vision blurred and she fell to the ground. Someone had forced her on the ground, but it all happened so quick that she couldn't get her bearings. Then she heard the shuffling feet and her adrenaline kicked in. "You're not taking my money, young man," she thought to herself. Anger consumed her, and immediately she was back on her feet. But as soon as she did, the thieves didn't have time to react. Winnie was going to fight back. As she looked at the men who were doing this, it dawned on her. It was the three that she'd seen outside the bank who were arguing with each other. They must have been planning the whole attack. But what they hadn't foreseen was that Winnie just wasn't the right target. Winnie lunged to the closest thief in her path. She grabbed his head and, with all the strength she could muster, used her full weight to bang him against the wall. The thieves were so shocked by this woman's virtue that they instantly panicked and sprinted down the road. Winnie was full of adrenaline. She defended herself as she saw fit, but when the gravity of the situation hit her, it was only afterwards that I realized what I'd done and started shaking, she said. What if they'd had a knife? I might not be here today. Still, she needed to find these men. They couldn't go around in life hassling elderly people. Luckily, the whole situation was far from over. With all the commotion, people gathered around Winnie to see if she was okay. She was distressed and looked shocked. Still, she couldn't think of anything but catching the hooligans. She insisted they leave her be and ran behind them. One person stayed with Winnie, but the two others hurried away, hoping to find the men who had done this. Sadly, the attackers were nowhere to be seen. The Good Samaritans who'd chased after the thieves lost them moments later. They'd lost sight of them, but little did they know the police were right on their tail. In her instant adrenaline rush, Winnie had caused quite a lot of damage. The attack marked the wall and floor of the ATM. She apparently had mustered a lot more strength than she ever thought she had. Since she could remember, she had always enjoyed exercise. But then, when she grew up, she became an active member of her local gym. She would do her workouts 4 times a week, but as she became elderly, her workouts were not as intense. On the day of the attack, she felt like all those years made her fighting fit to defend herself. Still, she needed to ensure that these men would be brought to justice. The police caught up with the offenders. One of them had a significant wound on his head, which had been the one Wendy had bashed into the ATM. The other 2 were also caught, one loitering up the road. The police rounded them all up and took them to the station. Justice was about to be served. This senior woman might look frail, but her inner strength prevailed on that day. Looking back, Winnie's still shaken by the incident. She thinks that if she'd been less fit, who knows what might have happened. When the 3 men were arrested, they confessed to the attack, and the case was quickly brought to court. Each of them was sentenced to prison, and the judge accused them of casting a shadow over Winnie's twilight years. Still, Winnie was happy that the incident occurred with her and not with someone who could not have defended themselves as she did.